Hi everyone, I'm Meenakshi Chaudhary and I welcome you all to Tathastu. So today we'll be discussing about Ashoka the great emperor and how his edicts reached or found a place in Delhi. Also we will be learning some interesting fact about his Dhamma policy which made him a great emperor. So let's start. So we first a brief introduction about the Mauryan Empire. Ashoka belonged to Mauryan Empire, but the Mauryan Empire was founded by Chandragupta Maurya with the help of his minister Kautilya, or more popularly known as Chanakya, and then it was ruled by the son of Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusar, and Ashoka was the son of Bindusar, or the third monarch in the line of the Mauryan dynasty. So let's begin. So first of all, the great emperor Ashoka was the third monarch, as I said, of the Mauryan dynasty who converted to Buddhism after witnessing the horrific effects of war in Kalinga. So before the war of Kalinga, he was known to be a very cruel emperor, very cruel king, very cruel emperor, that he may kill anyone. But after witnessing the lakhs of people died in this Kalinga war, and after witnessing all those atrocities, all that destruction or the destruction of property, lives of people, he decided to follow a pacifist policy and decided to convert into Buddhism. And he became a champion and patron of Buddhism and strove to spread Dhamma throughout his empire and even beyond his empire. That is why he decided everyone to stop this cruel war, this blood policy, and he decided to spread Dhamma, which basically promoted love towards human beings, and he decided to promote it through his empire and even beyond his empire. He erected, and to spread that message of Dhamma, he erected pillars as well as edicts which were written in very simple language. Actually, it was written in Prakrit language. And why Prakrit language was used? Because Prakrit was the language of the common people, so that the common people could understand the language, what was written on these, or what was inscribed on these pillars or the edict. Now these pillars or edict were erected throughout the subcontinent and even in present day Afghanistan, Nepal, Bangladesh and Pakistan, to spread about Buddha's words or his teaching or the love he promoted towards all human beings. Now moving on, James Princip, and he is James Princip. Just a minute. He is James Princip. He was a British antiquary and colonial administrator. So he was the first who deciphered the Ashokan edicts. As I said, the Ashokan edicts were written in Prakrit language, and the script which was used to write these edicts was the Brahmi. So he was the first one to decode and to read that what was written on those edicts. So James Princip was the first who deciphered these Ashokan edicts. This question has been asked in your UPSC prelims examination several times. Now these Ashokan inscriptions are also the first tangible evidence of Buddhism. Tangible basically means touchable, the things which you can touch, which you can feel. So these Ashokan inscriptions also are the first tangible evidence of Buddhism. Now talking about the edicts and the pillars which have been erected by Ashoka, there are 14 major rock edicts as well as minor rock edicts. So there are two types of rock edicts, major rock edicts and minor rock edicts, and minor rock edicts are found on 15 rocks across our country India and in Afghanistan, present day Afghanistan as well. As we have seen that he decided to spread this message not only in the Indian subcontinent but beyond it. And Ashoka uses his name. Now this is a very important factor. These type of questions have been asked in your UPSC examination. So Ashoka uses his name only on 4 of these places, namely Maski, Brahmagiri, Gujjara and Netur. So Brahmagiri is in Karnataka, Gujjara is in Madhya Pradesh and Netur is in Andhra Pradesh. So only these 4 places mention about the name of King Ashoka. Now talking about the pillar edicts, there are 7 pillar edicts, and there are several pieces of history which are found in heart of Delhi. Now these things which we have discussed till over here, they are about how many rock edicts are there, how many pillar edicts are there, and 4 places where the name of Emperor Ashoka is mentioned in the pillar edict. So it is at Maski, Brahmagiri, Gujjar and Netur. You have to remember this, so UPSC might ask question from this. Now moving on towards the discussion, there are several pieces of history which are found in the heart of Delhi that predates the Chahmans, Lodhis and Khiljis. Now before these dynasties were established in the medieval period, the Lodhis and the Khiljis, there were more pieces, historical pieces or historical elements which we find in our capital Delhi. Now this is the map where the rock edict, pillar edict or the stupa, you can take a screenshot, or stupa or rock edict of Ashoka are found. Now moving on, discussing about the several theories which revolve around these edicts and the pillars, and the theories has been given by historian Upender Singh, who also happens to be daughter of our former Prime Minister Manmohan. So she is a very renowned historian, and she has given certain theories related to these edicts or the pillars. Number 1, that rock edict which is now found near the Kalkaji temple of Delhi, it was placed near Kalkaji temple. So one theory says that it was placed near Kalkaji temple because the older shrine predates the temple, and so that rock edict could get the legitimacy of that shrine. So that is the reason why this rock edict was placed near the Kalkaji temple. So one theory says, but she also says that it could be a pure and a very pure speculation, that's it. So one theory talks about that the rock edict was placed near Kalkaji temple because it predates a older shrine, so that the rock edict could get a legitimacy. Now second theory is the trade route theory, that it was a very wide route used for the purpose of trade. So the area fell on the arterial trade route that connected northwest part of subcontinent in the Gangetic plains. That is why it is said, so that the passers-by could read that message. That is the reason why that rock edict was placed over there, and it is supported by evidence that the Mughal coast minar, or popularly known as milestone, where we can see how much distance is left to travel, these kind of milestones which we see, it was placed in the same area, proves that it was along a major trade route, or the place where this rock edict was placed was a major trade route in the ancient times. And the rock edict, one among several scattered in different parts of the country, narrates about his policy of Dhamma. Now this rock edict narrates about his policy of Dhamma. The Dhamma policy actually made Ashoka a very great emperor. So we will discuss very brief the few features of Ashoka's Dhamma policy. He began to disseminate it after embracing Buddhism and Ahimsa, and this he did after the Kalinga War. So he began to disseminate or spread it after embracing Buddhism or Ahimsa, popularly known as non-violence, following his conquest in the bloody battle where lakhs of people lost their life, and it was in Kalinga War. So after the Kalinga War, he decided to disseminate or spread the policy of Dhamma. The principles of Dhamma were formulated acceptable to people belonging to different communities and following any religious sect. So if we talk in very short or in a very simple plain language, what was Dhamma policy? It was basically all good things that our parents have taught us. Respect elders, don't disrespect anyone, respect people around you, don't lie, don't spread hate. So these all were the simple features which were part of his Dhamma policy. Dhamma was actually not given any formal definition. As I said, they were very simple rules to spread love and stop hatred, to stop spreading hatred. So Dhamma was not given any formal definition or structure. It emphasized on toleration and general behavior and toleration of all religions, that respect your religion but respect other people's religion as well. So in that sense, it also promoted secularism. Now Dhamma stressed, as I said, on dual toleration. It emphasized on toleration of people themselves and also in toleration of various belief and ideas of other people. So these are the few features of the Dhamma policy which was propagated or disseminated by Emperor Ashoka. Also, there is a stress on the notion of showing consideration towards slaves and servants. You should not disrespect anyone, and there is a stress on obedience to elders, generosity towards needy, Brahmins and Shramas. So basically, in short, respect everyone, don't disrespect anyone. So this was stressed in the policy of Dhamma. Ashoka also pleaded for tolerance of different religions, sect in an attempt to create a sense of harmony. So basically wanted to promote brotherhood and stop this hatred. That is why he promoted this policy of Dhamma. The policy of Dhamma also laid stress on non-violence, and which later also influenced our Indian national movement, where this non-violence or ahimsa policy was used, and non-violence was to be practiced by giving up war and conquest, and also as a restraint of killing of animals, that wars and conquest should be given up as an expansionist policy. We should live with love and harmony, and we should stop killing animals for our purpose. So these are few other features of the Dhamma policy. Now, other than the rock edict which is found near the Kalkaji temple, there are two other pillars which are located near a hospital, and the other one is located at the Firoz Shah Kotla. So we will study about how these pillars reached or found a place in Delhi. So these pillars were not originally established in Delhi. So first of all, first important point is that they were not originally located or established in the area of Delhi. Originally, these pillars are from Topra. Topra is a place near Haryana, and the second one is from the Meerut. The columns were brought to capital by Firoz Shah Tughlaq, who ruled Delhi in 14th century and belonged to the Tughlaq dynasty. So these pillars, which are now located in Delhi, were originally located in Topra, or popularly which is in Haryana, and second pillar was located in Meerut, but they were brought to Delhi by Firoz Shah Tughlaq, who ruled over Delhi in 14th century, and he belonged to the Tughlaq dynasty. Now another legend goes that emperor was fascinated by these pillars when he noticed them during his military campaigns. So when Firoz Shah Tughlaq went on his military campaigns, he saw those pillars and he was fascinated by them. He was fascinated by their beauty, and he wanted to bring it to Delhi. And Shams-e-Shiraz Afif, who has written Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi, recalls how locals told the king that the pillars were the walking sticks of Bhim from the Mahabharata. So there's a popular saying or story that Afif, who have written Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi, he said that the local people the, how they told the king that these pillars were the walking sticks of Bhim during the period of Mahabharata. Now he was filled with admiration, and he decided to bring these pillars to Delhi. He decided to bring them to Delhi as trophies of his conquest, but no one could decipher what was written on this on these pillars at that time. It was very later deciphered by James Prinsep. Now Afif, who's the writer of Tarikh-e-Firoz Shahi, recorded that a Brahmin scholar was called to the court to translate what was written on those pillars, and the Brahmin scholar was so clever that he praised the king. He praised the king that there is something which is written in your praise on these pillars. So he was called to translate the writings on those pillars, who interpreted them as a prophecy that a great ruler whose name is Firoz would one day rule over India. So the scholar, that Brahmin scholar, he tried to flatter Firoz Shah Tughlaq that it's your name which is written on this pillar, that you, a great ruler who goes by the name Firoz, will rule over India one day. And whether Tughlaq accepted such a blatant attempt of flattery at all, it was not recorded. Whether he was convinced that yes, this is the thing which is written or mentioned on these pillars, so it was not recorded at all. The Delhi Meerut pillar bears inscriptions from 14th and 16th centuries, mentioning various people including a goldsmith, carpenters and rulers, but the names of these people are not mentioned on these pillars. The Topra pillar, which has a 12th century inscription. Now these pillars also have other inscriptions as well. The Topra pillar, which was brought from Haryana, it has a 12th century inscription by a Chauhan king known as Vighraj IV, boasting of his conquest of the Vindhyas and how he defeated the outsiders, popularly the Turkish invaders, and restored the Aryan dominance over his land. These are the few features of the Delhi and the Topra pillars. So these are previous year questions which have been asked from this topic. So let's see what were these questions. Question number 1 is, who among the following rulers advised his subjects through these inscriptions? And this paragraph was given to you, in which it is written, whosoever praises his religious sect or blame other sect out of excessive devotion to his own sect with the view of glorifying his own sect, he rather injures his own sect very severely. So this we have seen in Dhamma policy, that how Ashoka promoted toleration toward other sects. So the answer is very simple. The answer is Ashoka. Question number 2, which was asked in 2019, in which of the following relief sculpture inscription is Ranyo Ashok, King Ashoka, mentioned along with the stone portrait of Ashoka, which something look like this? And the answer is Kangana Halli. These are the questions. So these are very simple questions which can be asked to you in your UPSC examination, and I hope the session was interesting and you understand everything. Thank you so much. If you like the session, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.